Welcome everyone to the Daniel S. Loeb Torah Center. For those who are with us here and online. Okay, I heard a beautiful shiur at 5:30 this morning, and I want to share with you what I heard from a wonderful rabbi who gives a weekly parsha shiur in Eretz Yisrael. And he says the following amazing, start with a question, an incredible question that really, it's such a simple question, it's hard to believe that we didn't think of it beforehand. And what's the question? Questions like this. We know that Noach has a tremendous introduction in the parsha. We know that Noach was a tzaddik, and the Torah, B'doratav, in his generation. And before we hear the entire story of Noach and the Mabul and the flood, Noach has given this incredible, beautiful introduction of who he was, and seemingly, thank you so much, thank you. And seemingly what a quick bracha, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh bevaro. Oh, Ben, perfect. You make a great rabbinic barista. So, we know that Noach has given this beautiful introduction, Ich tzaddik b'doratav. Noach has told he's a tzaddik, and then we're told, in the merit of that, he and his family get saved. This parasha, we meet Avraham Avinu. There is no hakdama. There is no introduction to Avraham Avinu. It dives right in that God speaks to him and says to him, Lech lecha. The question I have for you, my dear friends, is why does Noach, who is a tremendous tzaddik, given this appellation, given this title of a righteous man, and then the story of Noach is spoken to us, and when it comes to Avraham Avinu, nothing at all. We know nothing about him, definitely not in the Torah. Okay, the Gemara and the Rambam and the Rishon Machron all speak about him, but can't the Torah just say, oh, by the way, Avraham Avinu, he was a tzaddik as well. Instead, we're just thrown in and immediately told that he's told to leave Haran in order to go to the land that he's going to be shown. The answer to this question, my dear friends, is so revealing. It's going to tell us so much. It's mind-bending. Listen to this difference. I'm still trying to download this idea in my head. You have two different types of people who exist in this world. Some people are all about survival. And they could be tzaddikim. But they're very much about, how do I survive? What is my role in this world? I'm here to be saved. You hear people say this. I'm here to be saved. Those are the Noach people, and they're impressive. I'm not putting them down. They're righteous, they do the right thing, they say the right thing, they meet the right people, and when they meet them, they treat them well. But it's all about, how am I going to be saved? In the merit of their righteousness, they are saved, like Noach. And he represents the Umat Olam, the people of the world. Avraham Avinu is a different level, a complete different concept. Avraham Avinu is not about how am I going to get saved, but how am I going to change the world? How am I going to be service to the world in order to make the world into a better place? That's Avraham Avinu. He's not relying on his tzidkut, on his righteousness. He was a tzaddik, of course he was. But he's not relying upon that in order to save himself. He's all about my mission. So Noach is, we're told, a tzaddik, and he saves himself, and Taki does save himself. Avraham is not about that. Avram is told to go. Lech lecha. The first test of Avraham Avinu. He's all about, how am I going to bring a change to the rest of the world? That, my friends, is the cataclysmic change and difference between Noach and Avraham. Noach is about me, and Avraham is about you. And therefore, we're not given the introduction of who he was, because he hasn't done anything yet. He's still in Haran, he hasn't started his journey yet, and it's all about the future. And look at this interesting three words that the Ramban speaks about. Check this out. Just there's so much in the first pasuk, it's unbelievable. So we're told that God spoke to Avram. At this point, it's Avram. Later on, we're going to see he becomes Avraham. We'll see what that difference is all about. And he's told to go, mi artzacha, from your land, umi molodatacha, and from your birthplace, umi beit avicha, and from your father's house. What's unusual about these three expressions? Leaving your land, leaving your community, your local town, your city, your village, and finally, your father's house. What's unusual about that description? It's very, very weird. It's in reverse order. Very nice. It is in reverse order. Imagine you're traveling from New York to Eretz Yisrael. What do you leave first? Your house. Then what do you leave? The borders of your town, your city. And finally, you leave your country. This is the reverse order. First, we're told he leaves his country. Then we're told he leaves his city. And then we're told he leaves his father's house. It's reverse order. Obviously, my dear friends, this is not a description of geographical displacement. This description is of increasing difficulty. So the Ramban says, it shows how hard it is. It's hard to leave your country because your country is who you are. The language you speak, the culture, the environment you grew up in. Leaving that for something greater is hard. You know what's harder than that? Leaving your city, your town, the school you went to, your friends in your community, because they taught you a lot. Leaving that behind to find a new place for yourself in the future is harder. It's more difficult. But you know what's even harder than all of that? Leaving who you are or who you think you are based upon the family you were born into. Now that's tough. And we all have to do that. Not just people who come from quote-unquote bad homes, but even those great people. Even Yitzchak had to do that in order to break away from his father's derech, his father's way of leading his life. Because he had to forge his own personal future. And that's not easy. Even for a great tzaddik, it's not easy. And so this actually is a description of how great Avram was. He was able to leave it all behind and create a new future for himself. He didn't rely upon his grandfather or his father. He didn't rely upon anyone. He had to find his own derech, his own way. I want to talk for you just about the name Avraham. It's actually my second name, so I definitely feel connected to it. What is the difference between Avram and Avraham? What's the difference? A hey? Hey. Right, it's a hey. Very good. What does the letter hey represent in general? And what does it represent in his name? And by the way, in case you think it's a small thing, the Gemara tells us, now mark my words, these are strong words, but the Gemara says this. Cursed is the person who refers to Avraham as Avram. There's a special klala, a special curse that falls upon a person who after Avram, his name is changed to Avraham, reverts back to call him Avram. Why a person would want to do that is beyond me. But if they were to do that and to print Chumashim, be like, forget his new name, let's just keep calling him Avram, they've done a tremendous sin. Why? What exactly are you reverting Avraham back into by calling him Avram and not his new name, Avraham? That's the question I want to tackle. And the Rishonim, actually the Zohar, speaks about this and gives a fascinating answer. And it's going to relate to all of us, even if your name is not Avraham, which in my case it is, but that's besides the point. Okay. Avram means Avram, the father of wisdom. Ram is lifted up. He was the master of wisdom and chokhmah. His wisdom was not in the area of calculus, right? It wasn't in the area of science. I was going to say not in the area of astronomy, but he was an incredible genius when it came to astronomy and astrology. We'll leave that aside. He was the master of that. But his whole muhut, his whole essence, was of bringing information to the people in his town. And that's what he did. He traveled around in his tent, together with his wife Sarah, invited people into his tent. We spoke about that already. And he fed them. That's why you always give breakfast in a class. It's not a class and breakfast. It's breakfast in a class. You got to know your customers. You got to feed them. And then you download the information. And he gave them, I'm being very serious, it's not even a joke. He gave them the food, and he gave them the amazing, we'll talk about it next week, B'ezrat Hashem. He gave them the beautiful menu. And then he started to download wisdom into their heads. That's Avram. And that's fantastic. The hey isn't just a cute change of name. It shows that his entire mission was different. What does the Hey represent? So the Hey appellation was added to his name, changes his mission to the Father of everyone throughout the entire world, throughout history. So before he got the Hey, he's operating in his locale, all the people he could individually come into contact with. We'll talk about those people in a minute, what happened to them. It's a good question. Talk about that in one moment. But what about the rest of the world? He was given the Hey. The Hey is going to represent, by the way, what is the letter Hey? What is that letter? It's a very unusual letter. Be-hi-baram. Be-hi-baram says the Torah, right? In Bereshit, it's a small Hey. Because God used the letter Hey to create the world. He spoke it out. Hey is a breath. It has no form. It's just a breath you pull out. It's a very spiritual letter. And it goes in different directions, up and down, left and right. So Hey represents speech. It represents the koach of dibur, of speech. So what Abraham was able to do when God gave him that letter Hey was something he could not do beforehand, and that is to speak out to the entire world, for all of history, the idea of godliness, God consciousness in this world. That, my dear friends, is the Hey. Beforehand, he was stuck in this small area. Once he was given the Hey, he was able to spread information. Now check this out. I'm going to go a little bit deeper now, but this speaks to me because this is also my name. Avram Avinu's name, Avraham, we're told he actually had a different name, and that was Mashiach. He was also Mashiach. When was Mashiach? Well, he built the Beit HaMikdash? No, it doesn't mean that. It means that he was the king of his day. What's the Mashiach? The Mashiach, the anointed one. That's what it means. So he was the king of his day. Moshe Rabbeinu was also the Mashiach of his day. He was chosen to be the king of the people who took the Jewish people out of Egypt, given the Torah. And then that mantle got handed over. The word Mashiach also means Messiah, to make other people speak, to say something. That is what a king's job is. The king's job is to do a number of things. First of all, to go to war, which Avram Avinu does. He goes to war against the 4 kings, or by the 5 kings, beat the 5 kings in order to rescue his nephew Lot. That's one job of a king, and he does it very, very well. Moshe Rabbeinu does it as well. He goes to king against Amalek. David HaMelech does it. He's the Mashiach of his day. The future Mashiach is going to have to do the same thing. The future Mashiach is going to have to fight Amalek and Gog and Magog. Right? The king Magog and his nation Magog. So kings, we don't like to talk about it, think about it, they have to go to war. But they have another job. And maybe this one is greater. And that is to instill in the population a knowledge and love of God. They are meant to be the role models that we look up to in order to lead godly lives. That is the job of the king. They don't need to be the biggest Talmid Chacham. They're greater scholars than the king who exist. That's okay. That's not their job. Right? They're not the Kohanim. Right? They can't ever be a Kohen. They're from the wrong tribe. They're not the Leviim. But they do have a job. And that job is to bring peace to the Jewish people, to lead, and to be a shining light of godly consciousness. Let's go to Avram Avinu. Abraham was the first Jewish Mashiach. He was the first king of the Jewish people. How did he do it? He fought wars. But he also, Abraham, he spoke about godliness. Everyone he met, he gave them a bracha. He said, God willing, you'll be fine. He brought them under the kanfei Shekhinah, under God's wings. And he was extremely successful at doing that. That came from the letter Hey, that breath of life, of Torah, that he was bringing out to the world in his day. That, my friends, is the secret to Abraham's success. This Hey represented his mission of spreading godliness to the entire world, to everyone in the entire world, for all of Jewish history. That's why if you go back to Avram and you say, he's still Avram, you're limiting his power and his mission. You're missing the entire point of what it is to be a Jew. That's what you're actually doing. You're not just like insulting him. He's dead, he doesn't care. What you're saying is that his mission was limited to his generation and not to future generations too. You're denying Moshe Rabbeinu, you're denying Torah, you're denying every single king, and you're denying Mashiach as well. That's what you're doing by limiting. That one hay changes everything. It changes the entire game. One last idea, and we'll finish with this. And it all connects, by the way. So Avram goes to war to rescue his kidnapped nephew Lot. Right? We know that story, okay? By the way, I mentioned already, when they kidnapped Lot, I always thought that he was kind of like swept up in this war of 4 nations and 5 nations. He was the target. Actually, Avraham Avinu was the real target. But they couldn't get Avraham, so what do? They take Lot, knowing full well that Avraham Avinu, sound familiar, is going to have to negotiate and put himself in danger in order to rescue Lot. Just like they do to us right now. Right? They grab people that we care about in order to draw us into a milchama, in order to attack the people they really want to get. Yemach Shemam. This is nothing new. It's a very, let's be honest, very clever strategy that's been used for thousands of years. So they kidnap Lot, and Avraham Avinu takes the bait, and he says, "I got to rescue my son, my nephew Lot," because Lot was his adopted son. Lot was his adopted son. After his brother Haran died, he adopted Lot, his son. Haran was a great tzaddik in his own right, and he adopts him, so he feels achrayut, tremendous obligation and responsibility to rescue him. And so he goes to war. And he wins the war against these 4 kings, which we said already represents the 4 galot, 4 exiles the Jewish people are going to go into. His fighting these 4 kings is a siman, a sign of the future milchama that we're going to have with the 4 kingdoms that come from these 4 kings. That's why where these 4 kings come from represent the 4 locations of the future war. What I want to talk about, though, is how Avraham Avinu is offered the spoils of war. When you go to war, you get offered spoils of war when you win. I mean, you're not offered, you take them. And actually, that's a right of a conquering army. When an army conquers, they get the spoils of war. They get to grab it. They get the gold and the silver and all the other property that they want, they get to keep. You come to war against me, that costs me time and money and energy, and so we need to be paid back. And so there are reparations. Maybe that's a better modern day word. There's reparations that are paid because of what was taken from us, right? The soldiers and the energy and the money that we lost having to defend ourselves or to rescue our family when it comes to it. What's fascinating about this battle, unlike most but not all other battles, is that Avraham Avinu absolutely refuses to take any spoils of war. Completely refuses. He says, no, I'm not taking it, and you can keep all of the spoils. That's what he says. Where do we see such a thing? Where do we see that no spoils are taken? In spiritual wars. Not all wars are spiritual. Some are there just to defend yourself. Some are there to grab land, right? To increase the size of Eretz Yisrael, which itself is a mitzvah. But when you fight Amalek, that is a spiritual war. There is no spoils you're allowed to take because everything they have is contaminated and has to be destroyed. This actually is the mistake that King Saul made when he beat Melech Agag. He let them live, and he had a very good reason to do it, but in the end he lost the kingship over that. So Amalek, no spoils of war. No spoils of war. Over here, there is an Amalek connection, but there's something greater. And that is, when the war that is fought is so obviously not from your own power, but purely a gift from Hashem, like the first battle when we entered into Israel with Joshua, when we defeated Jericho, there too, no spoils of war. One person took spoils, it didn't end well for him. So that first battle when we went into Israel knows all the other battles we took. We took the land and the produce and the animals and the gold and the silver. That's fine. But that first battle of Jericho, no spoils of war. Why not? We didn't do anything. We just walked in, we walked around, the walls went down, Dayenu, we won the battle, we won the war, no spoils. That's a testament to say that these spoils do not belong to me because I didn't do anything. It's all you, Hashem. This battle must be the same. Because Avram Avinu said, I do not want the spoils of war. And listen to this amazing language. He says, Im muchot v'yatzrach na'al. I'm not even going to take a thread or even a shoelace. Strange thing to say. That's what it says. I'm not going to take a thread. I'm not taking a shoelace. Ve'im ekach mikol ashelach v'lo tomar ani erashti et Avram. I don't want anyone to say, I made Avram great and powerful from this. I don't want that. I don't want anyone to think that Avram won this war. I gave Avram all this money and he became rich. And the reason he's rich and he used his riches is because of me. All the people he goes and makaras and brings close to Hashem because of me. I don't want that. You know what the Gemara says on these two words? Something unbelievable. Unbelievable. In the merit of Avram not taking a chot, a thread, in the merit of him not taking a srach na'al, a shoelace, or in those days, also a shoelace was a shoe strap. What do we get? 2 mitzvot. His descendants get 2 mitzvot. What are those mitzvot? Talit is the thread. Tefillin is the strap of the shoe. Those are the 2 mitzvot that Avram's descendants get in the merit of Avram not taking the thread or the strap. That's what he gets. That's what we get. Those 2 mitzvot. What is going on over here? What is this idea? Because Avram Avinu didn't take a thread, or he didn't take anything, he didn't take a sheep either. Right? He didn't take any of that stuff. They gold or silver. These 2 mitzvot. Well, on a simple level, it makes sense. It's a spiritual battle. We won the battle from Hashem completely. Hashem's like, Avram's like, I'm not taking anything from this battle. You've got to be crazy. So what does he say? It's a spiritual battle. The reward is spiritual. We get talit, we get tefillin. Those 2 mitzvot. It's a spiritual reward and not a physical reward. It makes sense, right? It's shaveh. Why these 2 things? Why these 2 things? Why these 2 particular mitzvot? I'm not sure, but I have an idea I want to share with you. First of all, what does the talit represent? Talit represents protection. You put the talit and say that all of my clothing, because that represents the clothing that I wear, is kadosh. So therefore the talit, right, sukkah talit that we put over ourselves, the protection, comes from Hashem. That is the mitzvah of tzitzit, that is the mitzvah of talit, and that is the protection that we imbue our clothing with. That's from Hashem, and that's from Avram Avinu. But what is the tefillin? The tefillin that we put on is going to represent the physical might and the remembrance of HaKadosh Baruch Hu every single day. So you have 2 parts that are tefillin. For us, Sephardim, is 1 mitzvah. So we make 1 bracha on it. Ashkenazim, they make 2 brachot. The second bracha is safek. We don't do that. Sephardim, we make 1 bracha. It's 2. But actually, it's 2 elements. You have the tefillin that face the heart. So my daily activities that I do with my arms are going to be connected to my lev, my heart, and my moach, where the tefillin goes up onto, right? That middle section on the 3rd eye, right? Goes where the eyes cross in the skull. That's where it goes, right? Between the eyes. So my eyes are going to be towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and my moach, so all of my thoughts are going to be towards Hashem. My eyes are towards Hashem. My strength, my arm is towards Hashem, and so is my heart. So our entire avodah towards Hashem actually was created by Avram Avinu at this moment. At this moment. This spiritual battle that he won and did not get rewarded physically from, and said, I don't want the physical reward, but please, let my children appreciate all mitzvot, but especially mitzvot that connect our strength, our koach, the arm, our hearts, our emotional, and our moach, and our eyes as well. That's all from Avraham Avinu. In the merit of that, he created that entire substance of our connection to Hashem at that moment by withholding himself from something that most people, if they completed advantage, believe me, the kings in those days, they couldn't understand. They said, but you won the war. Why wouldn't you take the spoils? That's what everyone does. And he says, the Jewish people are different. Our spoils of war, ultimately, are spiritual. And if they are physical, they're there to help elevate the spiritual as well. That's Avraham Avinu. Those are the wars. And that's why the hay was implanted in his name. Have a great, successful day. Azak Baruch.